Hey guys, my name is Matsimio, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Scout Elite from Battlefield 4. I tried this out for many hours. I played around with it. I tried to get acclimated to its bullet drop, its bullet speed. I just tried to get good with this weapon, and while there are some redeeming qualities to it, there are some nice aspects to this weapon. Overall, I think it's a pile of trash, it's abysmal, and honestly, I can't see why anyone would want to use this bolt-action rifle over all of the others. Like, it truly is that bad. And so first off, the Scout Elite has just a terrible damage model. It's going to do 100 damage up close, so it's still going to give you the one shot, one kill within close proximities if you do get a headshot or an upper chest shot. The downside of it, though, is that the further out the target goes, you're going to reach a point where even if you get a headshot, you're not going to get the one-shot kill. Like, at, I think it's 100 meters, the damage drops off to 36.6 damage. And so even if you get a headshot, even with, I think it's the 2.25 headshot multiplier with the bolt-action rifles, that still doesn't give you the kill. Like, it's incredible that DICE put in a bolt-action rifle in the game that doesn't have that capabilities. And so if you are someone who likes to snipe someone at a distance, don't even touch the Scout Elite, because it's going to be one of the most frustrating experiences in Battlefield, where you have to get 2 headshots or a headshot and a body shot to drop someone at that distance. There was even one moment where I had to hit my enemy 3 times in the body to kill them. They were off in the distance. It seemed like they were, you know, a good 100 meters away, and so I was only doing around 36.6 damage per shot, and it took me a staggering 3 bullets to take them out. I think that's like the slowest time to kill in the game. Like, you have to, you know, get the next bullet in the chamber, you have to fire it off. If you miss any of your shots in between, it's going to take you even longer to drop them. And so trying to hit 3 consecutive shots with a bolt-action rifle, you guys know sniping in this game is not easy, and trying to hit a target 3 times in a row, especially at 300 meters away, is not an easy task. So if you are someone who likes to snipe someone at a distance, just completely avoid the Scout Elite. Another thing that's really holding it back is that it only has 6 rounds in a magazine, and so if you are trying to just rattle off a bunch of bullets downrange, be prepared to reload often and frequently. A lot of the bolt-action rifles have 11 to 10, depending on if you still have a bullet in the chamber, but not so with the Scout Elite, and so that's just kind of another thing that you have to work around. And then on top of that, if that wasn't all enough for you, it also has the worst bullet drop out of all of the bolt-action rifles. There are a couple that compare to it, but the Scout Elite has a bullet drop of 15 meters per second squared. It's been a while since I've been in high school and since I've been in a physics class, but what I remember is that the gravitational pull of all objects on our planet, on Earth, is 9.8 meters per second squared. And so maybe I'm just completely wrong, maybe I'm not thinking this from the right angle, but that means that the Scout Elite has more gravitational pull towards the ground than other objects on the planet, which should be impossible. And so what it kind of looks like DICE did here is that they added in a stat and a different bullet drop for all of these different weapons, all of the rifles, just to kind of switch things up and to make them feel a little bit different, because at least from my physics background, which honestly isn't extensive, that seems impossible, and it's just kind of something in the game that they put in there. And so when you compare that to, let's say, the SRR-61 that has a bullet drop of 6 meters per second, the Scout Elite has twice of that, and so if you're trying to line up a shot at a distance, or really at any range, you're going to have to aim twice as much above the enemy's head, or more than twice, to try and nail that headshot. And so hopefully this is becoming very apparent that the Scout Elite is just not a rifle that you want to use at long range. It just simply will not perform very well. So now you might be thinking to yourself, why would anyone want to use a Scout Elite? Like, these stats sound terrible. There has to be some sort of redeeming quality to this weapon. Why would they do this to one of the guns in Battlefield 4? This sounds terrible. And while I would completely agree with you, it is abysmal, there are a couple of stats here that are kind of nice. And probably the nice feature is that it has the highest rounds per minute out of all the bolt-action rifles. It has an RPM of 63, and while that isn't blazing fast by any means, it is an upgrade when you compare it to the other Recon weapons. Another nice feature is that it has a very fast bullet velocity, or travel speed. It has a bullet velocity of 640 meters per second, and don't confuse that with bullet drop. I know it doesn't really make sense, or at least it doesn't make sense to me, but essentially what this means is that you don't have to aim in front or predict as much where the enemy is heading because it's gonna hit or travel to the target faster. So now that we kind of have all the stats out of the way, how do you use this weapon appropriately? How are you going to be able to go on kill streaks with the Scout Elite and get the most out of it? Well, at least for me, I felt like the sweet spot was medium to maybe a little bit further than that when trying to engage your enemies. You can play aggressively. You can try to play the aggressive recon role because this does have a very fast rounds per minute, and I know that is a stat or a feature that you're kind of looking for a bolt-action rifle when you are trying to play aggressively. But I felt like, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older now and I can't be bothered with trying to quickscope people all day long, I felt like the medium range game was probably the best way to kind of handle it. You don't have to compensate as much for the bullet drop. You have to aim a little bit above their head, but not like 5 meters above them, and it made it a little bit easier to line up those shots. But anything further than medium or a little bit further than medium distance, just completely stay away from that combat. I mean, maybe if you like to hurt yourself or you like to inflict pain and frustration, then go for it. Try to use this as a terrible weapon setup and try to snipe people at range. You know, more power to you if you're able to do that successfully. But for everyone else, I felt like the sweet spot was the medium game. Like, that's where you're going to have the most success. But probably the thing that I had to overcome the most was just getting acclimated to that bullet drop. I came from a background where I only used, really, the SRR-61, which at least in my opinion is probably the best recon weapon in the game. Like, it has an extremely fast bullet speed, it's got an amazing bullet drop, it has 11 rounds in its magazine. Like, it just is an amazing weapon. And so trying to take the skills that I learned with the SRR-61 and then transferring them on over into the Scout Elite was not a painless process. And honestly, it was just a nightmare. And the biggest thing that I honestly just had to overcome was that bullet drop. Going from a 6 meters per second on over into a 15, and while they have no basis on the physics of Earth and the gravitational pull of Earth, that difference between them is so substantial that just trying to get used to the weapon, especially with the background in the SRR-61, made this extremely painful. And so if you are also someone who likes my weapon of choice, the SRR-61, and wants to try out the Scout Elite, be prepared for some growing pains, and just remember, you have to aim above their head a little bit more than you're used to. But if you are someone who likes to play aggressively, you like the aggressive recon role, then this may be a solid pick. I would recommend maybe using the lower optic scopes, even like the red dot sight, the ACOG scope. If you want a challenge, you know, continue using the 8x scope, which is what I was basically using throughout today's video, and then play on maps like a Flood Zone is a solid pick. Pretty much any of the domination maps. You can play on Guilin Peaks. All of those smaller maps that allow you to kind of take advantage of the terrain to not only, you know, get a little bit closer to the enemy, but also where you don't have to go for those really long ball shots. But overall, I don't think I could ever recommend using this weapon for anyone. Maybe if I hated them, maybe if I wanted them to feel pain and frustration, I would recommend using the Scout Elite. But for everyone else, or anyone that really just wants to enjoy playing Battlefield 4 or wants an enjoyable recon and sniping experience, just avoid this weapon like the plague. Maybe if you enjoy the aggressive recon playstyle, maybe you enjoy getting more bullets down range, then I guess try it out. But for everyone else, I would just avoid this, stick with the other weapons in the game and the other recon guns. But that is about it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed and are having a great holiday season right now. I know a lot of you are probably out of school or you're visiting family, so I hope that is going swimmingly. But until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.